November the 5th, we have to do all we can to elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
The Harris campaign finds magic in Michigan, and the Trump side refuses to observe reality.
No, it's not.
Tonight, lies and the lying liars campaigning on them. Then, the latest example of good government acting in the public interest that is driving Maga crazy.
I've got to prepare all of you to get very angry because what we're about to share with you will rightly make your blood boil.
And how Melania Trump is cashing in on the post-Rose chaos her husband created.
What does my body, my choice really mean?
When All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. 32 days until the election. And with us very close, we've been hearing a lot about misinformation lately, the danger it poses in this very tense and heightened political climate. And I think the term misinformation, which is a perfectly fine term, doesn't quite do enough to capture what is happening with one half of the American two-party system. Outright, brazen, dangerous, ludicrous lies, in denial of the most obvious reality, the one you can see before you. That has become not just the primary tactic for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's running mate, but the operating principle increasingly for the entire Republican Party across lines of faction. Just listen to this telling exchange on the economy.
No, it's not. It's inflation has devastated our economy. It's one of the big problems we have. And on jobs, we have the illegals have taken more jobs than anybody else. You have illegals coming in and they're taking the jobs.
Just a lie. Just a lie. Donald Trump knows the economy is doing very well. He knows the, quote, illegals, undocumented, unauthorized workers haven't taken all the jobs. Inflation has cooled. Jobs are up a lot. Wages are up. The stock market is booming. He denies it. As if by repeating the lie enough times, he can just change the underlying reality itself. That's the idea here. Another one, again, just from today, a simple, small one, but perfectly indicative. Trump comes out and boasts that Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Chase, has endorsed Trump for president. Now, you'd think you can't lie about that. It's too easy to check. You could probably guess what the problem is here. Jamie Dimon has not endorsed Donald Trump for president. That's just a flat-out lie. You could just call up his spokespeople, as reporters did. His spokesman said Jamie Dimon has not endorsed anyone. Now, when Trump was called out for this obvious brazen lie, he then resorted to even more lying, telling NBC News, I don't know anything about it, and somebody put it up, no, I don't know. After NBC News explained that Dimon did not endorse Trump, he responded, well, then somebody is using his name? And the original post with the lie is still up, by the way. Again, this is just a perfect example of how the Trump Republican Party operates. Today, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, a person who at once upon a time people thought was like a serious dude, he called these new jobs numbers, right, put out by independent civil servants, another fake jobs report out from the Biden-Harris government, basically accusing the White House of cooking the books. And at some level, it's not anything new, right? We've been living with this for so long. Everyone knows Trump and his MAGA cronies are liars. But there's real danger here, right? The lies are dangerous. They have a cost. Like, for instance, most obviously, the big lie of a stolen 2020 election, the lie that Donald Trump repeats to this day, almost every day, even as his running mate tries to gaslight us all into believing he doesn't. And that lie caused the deadly January 6th insurrection, election workers to flee their homes due to threats of violence. It is the means through which Trump may be priming supporters to do it all over again a month from now. In fact, he seems dead set on that if he loses. There's also Trump's disgusting blood libel directed at Haitian migrants, racist lies about folks stealing and eating pets. That directly led to a series of bomb threats and fears for safety in Springfield, Ohio, and workplaces and in schools. And it's a lie, by the way, that J.D. Vance admits is a lie.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to, create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana.
Make stories, right? So that claim about Haitians is probably the most notable. But again, Trump's dangerous, violent lies about migrants is an everyday occurrence, right? They don't end there with graphic and violent rhetoric.
We're releasing migrants into our country, but these are killers. These are people at the highest level of killing that cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next morning. They won't even think about it. And these people are all over the place, and they're killing people. I could go through the stories, and I won't. But all over, sometimes I do. They come up, they grab young girls, and they slice them up right in front of their parents.
Now, these are dangerous things to say, and they are incitement of a sort. And the exact same thing is happening with the lies that he's been pushing around Hurricane Helene. That FEMA disaster relief money is somehow being taken from those affected and redirected to migrants.
So we now have no money that was supposed to be used for tragedy, for hurricanes. And this was a tragic hurricane. This was maybe the worst hurricane we've ever had. And he's got no money. And we said, what happened to all the money? They were given billions for this. He spent it on illegal migrants coming into the country, a big percentage of which are murderers. So we are poisoning our country. Our country is being poisoned. Our country is being ruined. It's being ruined by these people. And they took billions of dollars and used it for settlements of people that came in, many of which are criminals.
Again, this is fabricated. It's made up. It's a lie. In fact, the only president that took FEMA money for migrant detention was Donald Trump when he was president. But it's just an alternate reality, right? This is now gospel among a certain percentage of the population. And the message is sticking. Voters are buying the alternate reality he's selling. A voter asked him about it at his rally just last hour. And again, he lied again. Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican, even got in on the conspiracy game. Listen to this one. Quote, yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done. And I have to admit, when I first saw this, I thought it was a parody or that someone had taken over her account, but no. Now, the idea here, in case you're not following this particular right-wing conspiracy theory, is that Hurricane Helene was created and sent to Western North Carolina to punish people that don't vote for Donald Trump, even though Asheville, a big part that it hit, is famously a liberal town in North Carolina. Now, I shouldn't be surprised. This is coming from the woman who said famously, that some Rothschild fabricated space laser was the thing that started a California wildfire. But that was before she was a member of Congress. So now she's a member of Congress. Like, they control the weather out there for everyone to read is a pretty shocking lie. I mean, actually, it's out past a lie. A lie doesn't really do it justice. It's a lurid delusion. It's a form of madness she's hoping to spread. Also, who exactly is the they, you think? Think for a second. Who's the they? Yesterday, one Republican state senator from North Carolina, Republican, was begging folks to stop spreading these lies and conspiracy theories about Western North Carolina, which are actually hampering recovery efforts. Please help stop this junk. It is just a distraction to people trying to do their job. Please don't let these crazy stories consume you, or you will continually contact your elected officials to see if they are true. One North Carolina Democrat spoke to the HuffPost about just how polluted the information environment had become, thanks in part to Donald Trump. The biggest issue is rumors and fake memes and the photos of people being trapped in areas around the county, and we send folks out to rescue them, and there's no one there to be rescued. Precious resources at the county level, amidst a national disaster, going out to rescue people who are not there. These are dangerous lies in the middle of a serious natural disaster that has left over 200 people dead. And it's part of a larger attempt to trick and scare voters and basically to sort of whisk them into an alternate reality, right? All part of the same scheme. From J.D. Vance being unable to say that Trump lost the election, FEMA stole all the money and spent it on immigrants, Joe Biden is cooking the books, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they can control the weather? What do you even do with stuff like that? Like, where do you start combating a lie like that? The plain fact is that there's been a complete and total epistemic breakdown among tens of millions of our fellow Americans. That breakdown, that brazen lying, is what brought threats of violence to the people of Springfield. It is right now, as I speak to you, actively hampering an ongoing hurricane recovery. And nearly 4 years ago, it brought an armed, angry mob to our nation's capital. And if left unabated, I fear it is going to get people hurt again. Relationships, though, they do have some sense of the public interest, like what is right, what is best for most Americans. They just don't approach every single last decision by first thinking, what will get me elected, what will give me more power. But that is how Donald Trump thinks. He's a man who changed a hurricane path with a Sharpie because he'd been ridiculed for misstating where the storm was headed, who autographed a stock chart to take credit for every bump in market value in the middle of COVID. He is incapable of thinking about others except in the most instrumental, exploitive ways. We lived through one of the worst examples, and it was so traumatic we basically blocked it out. Now we've learned that he really does see aid as something that only his people deserve. It is possible to expect something more out of our presidents than a constant transactional obsession with their status. You don't have to love Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to see that they really have an idea of what it means to work for the public interest. But you have to be blind to pretend Donald Trump has any interest in anything other than his own weird and broken ego. With the election just 32 days away, you would think Donald Trump might be more focused on politics than business, but he seems to be hawking more products than ever. You've got your Never Surrender gold sneakers, available for $499. The President Trump First Edition silver medallion, $100. The official Trump digital trading card, America First Edition, going for a sweet $99. For more discerning tastes and wallets, the Trump Victory Watch is a cool $100,000. And the God Bless the U.S.A. Bible can be yours for just $59.99, which is good news for the Oklahoma Department of Education, whose Maga Secretary of Education Superintendent needs to secure 55,000 copies of a Bible that perfectly fits the Trump version specifications. And now, Melania Trump's got a new book, the upcoming memoir, priced at $40 a pop, or $250 if you want the collector's edition. CNN reports the former First Lady's publisher also tried to get the network to pay her $250,000 in exchange for an interview. That's not the biggest story to come from the memoir's promotion so far. So far, the big bombshell is Melania Trump's new public defense of abortion rights.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth: individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
What on earth? Now, for his part, Melania's husband, who you may recall killed Roe v. Wade, consigning millions of women to have no control over their bodies, brushed it off as the heartfelt opinion of his beloved and independent wife.
We spoke about it, and I said, you have to write what you believe. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You have to write what you believe. She's very beloved. People love our former First Lady, I can tell you that. But I said, you have to stick with your heart.
Now, to be clear, this is part of an age-old pattern, a transparently craven and cynical attempt to appeal to women, where Republican first ladies speak out in favor of abortion rights in stark contrast to their husbands' actual policies. Betty Ford pioneered this, doing it nearly 50 years ago.
I feel very strongly that it was the best thing in the world when the Supreme Court voted to legalize abortion and, in my words, bring it out of the backwoods and put it in the hospitals where it belonged. I thought it was a great, great decision.
Jessica Valenti is the author of the Abortion Everyday Substack, where today she warns, don't fall for Melania's misdirection. She is also the author of the brand new book, the essential book, Abortion, Our Body, Their Lies, and the Truths We Use to Win. You can get that wherever you get your books, and I highly recommend it. She joins me now. Jessica, you had a sentence, I think, in your piece today that was, to me, summed it up, which was, I think you wrote, how stupid do they think we are?
I mean, apparently pretty stupid. It's really, I mean, maybe she is pro-choice, who knows, right? But it's sort of irrelevant. The fact that she is coming out with this a few weeks before the election in a time when her husband is trailing with women, I think at last count was 21 points, in a moment when women dying from abortion bans is all over the news. I don't think that that is a coincidence. It is pretty craven and pretty disgusting to see, actually, as someone who writes about this all the time.
Yeah, you wrote, Melania has always been complicit in her husband's reign of terror and bigotry, and now in the moment of unthinkable suffering, she is hawking a $40 book on the backs of dead women. The one thing I will say about this, and this was evident in J.D. Vance's debate performance earlier in the week, is like, they do at least understand they're on the wrong side of this and are trying every trick in the book, denial, lies, evasion, to get away from it.
It's all distraction, right? We had Trump saying that he was going to cover IVF. Now he's saying that he would veto a national abortion ban, which we know is not true. And we know that they're using, funny games around language there. And having the First Lady come out, not just with this statement, but with that video in an ad that really looks like sort of like a bad 90s perfume commercial. That's all anyone is talking about when it comes to abortion rights news.
And do you think, I guess the question is, like, I know you have been sort of sounding the alarm on this, on the kind of like attempts at gamesmanship here and the kind of cynicism of it. I wonder how, it's hard to know, right? It seems pretty clear from the polling, people do know who's on the side of abortion rights and who's not, but how effective the confusion is.
Unfortunately, I think it's pretty effective. There's been all sorts of polls when it comes to women in battleground states who are buying into his rhetoric around he's giving it back to the states. He wants it to be the will of the people. Now, do they really believe that, or are they using that as an excuse to feel okay about voting for Trump when they know that he's actually anti-abortion? Right. I don't know. But the polls indicate that there is some movement on that language, and that's why it's so important that we're calling it out whenever we can.
Yeah, and particularly Vance, I think, is an important aspect of this, because one of the things that I think has benefited Trump on the politics of abortion from all along is that no one looks at this guy and thinks that he has any deeply held belief about any of this one way or the other. Like, it's just so obviously not the case. But J.D. Vance does. Like, J.D. Vance is a true believer. J.D. Vance is on the record up and down saying, I want a national abortion ban. He thinks abortion is murder. And his moonwalking away from it is really significant, because I think with him, you really understand this is a guy who, like, genuinely has a real deep ideological commitment.
Oh, yeah. He's called abortion the first political issue that he was ever interested in. This is something that is really, really important to him. And so for him to back away from this, for him to sort of soften his language, I think is really meaningful. But even when he tries to do that, he sort of gives up the game, right? In the debate, he talked about a friend of his who had an abortion so that she could escape an abusive relationship. And he sort of brought it up as a way to make himself seem compassionate. But he didn't mention that his laws would have actually forced her to carry that pregnancy to term and to stay with that abusive partner. So even when he is trying to get one over on voters, he sort of can't.
I want to say there's one more thing he talked about, and this is something you've been harping on. I just want to have you explain it, because people will hear the idea that I don't oppose a ban. He said, I never supported a ban. I wanted a minimum national standard. It's terminology they've used, which sounds more reasonable than a ban, but basically is the same.
It's the exact same thing. What they're doing is they have redefined ban to mean an abortion prohibition with zero exceptions, even for women's lives, right? So under that definition, America has zero abortion bans. There are no abortion bans in America. And so when Trump says, of course, I would veto a national ban, what he's really saying is, of course, I would veto a total prohibition on abortion without exceptions for women's lives, right? It's sort of the rhetorical equivalent of crossing your fingers behind your back.
Right. And minimum national standard, which is like, well, we're banning all abortions after 15 weeks is what they use instead. Exactly. But when he says I won't, right, when he says I won't vote for a ban, that's they mean they don't think any state has a ban right now under their definition of ban, which is a really important thing for people to understand, which I learned from reading your excellent Substack an excellent book, which is called Abortion, Our Bodies, Their Lies, and the Truths We Use to Win by Jessica Valenti. It is available now. Get one for your household and everyone you love. Thanks a lot. Still the...
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop fucking lying. Always lying to me. You lying so much. You making it hard for me. Every time you tell me something, I figure that you're lying. Ooh, it's almost like you faking. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know you're lying.
Dogs, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
People of Springfield, please don't eat my cats. Why would you do that? Eat something else. People of Springfield, please don't eat my dog. Here's a cat.